I kissed my obsessive stalker boss. Wait, Ivan? I stood there taking in the revelation. There, standing before me, was the source of the weird stalker messages I'd been getting. My attractive boss, Ivan Rankov. Dark, piercing eyes gazed at me with emotionless expressions. If it weren't for the fact I was totally confused, I'd almost feel hot and bothered. Over the last 2 months, I'd been getting messages complimenting me on how I looked while I was sitting. The person also followed me. Getting frustrated, I decided to confront them. This was not what I expected. Ivan adjusted his shirt and smirked. "Looks like you finally got my message, Corey," he said, taking a couple of steps closer to close the distance. I shuddered as I felt his body next to mine. "Why, Ivan? Why did you send those messages?" "It's clear this is something you want too, right?" Ivan asked, a smile on his lips. I hesitated, lost in those eyes. Trying to form a response was hard right now. Conflicting feelings washed over me. Why did it have to be him? Ivan was not only obsessive, he was also super attractive. "I don't know. Ivan, I thought confronting my stalker would lead to something else, not this." Ivan chuckled, closing the distance. For a moment I forgot how to breathe or even how to speak. He reached up, touching my face. "I can make it worth your while, Corey. I can make those messages of what I wanted to do to you become a reality." My heart raced to hear this. Something about hearing Ivan's sultry, sexy words had me going. Ivan was sinfully attractive. Tall, dark, and handsome. He was obsessive, always hanging over me and getting uncomfortably close. It made me uncomfortable, but knowing it was him, of all people, also turned me on. Now, as I stood there with him, I wondered about the implications of such a thing. "So what do you say, Corey? Would you like to explore these feelings?" Ivan asked as his long fingers touched my shoulders and then traveled down to the pain of my chest. Panting, I struggled to gather myself. What does that mean?" I finally spat out. "Whatever you want it to be. Perhaps you and I can figure something out mutually beneficial for the both of us." I shivered. It had been so long since I hooked up with someone. I didn't expect it to be with my weird boss who'd been sending me so many flirty messages, and sometimes followed me. But now, as I considered the options, I knew deep down this was what I wanted. "Why don't you show me then?" He leaned in, his hot breath against my ear. "I will." Before I responded, his lips met mine, plump and dominant. He pushed me against the wall of the hotel room. I gasped, and Ivan took that moment to part my lips, pressing his tongue against mine. As we mingled and explored each other, our clothes disappeared. That night, my boss took me as his. It was a simple hookup, an expression of feelings. I just wanted to know who was sending the stalker messages, not expecting any of this. What I didn't know was that after that night, my life was about to change forever. A week later. I thought hooking up with Ivan wouldn't lead to anything. The next morning, as we got our clothes on, we agreed never to talk about this. Good, because I didn't need people to know I was gay, and I was sure as hell that Ivan didn't want people to know he was doing this either. Then again, Ivan was an enigma. I'd seen him with guys at events before, which aroused a bit of jealousy. Deep down, I wanted this. Still, I always thought Ivan disliked me, hated me even. After that night, I was confused. And when he invited me to his office for a proposal, I grew even more confused. "No, that's insane." "Corey, I know it is. But please, hear me out. I need your help." What Ivan needed my help with was he wanted me to be his fake date in order to improve the reputation and appeal to shareholders. Ivan hated bringing random women. Even though he was bisexual, his normal dates weren't able to make it, which was where I came in. That was impossible. Immediately I refused. What happened that night was just one night. "Agreed, but I'm desperate and out of options, Corey. If you agree to date me for a bit, then I'll give you whatever you need." "Whatever I need?" I asked, a little taken aback. "Yes," Ivan replied, resting his hand on top of mine. "Money, assistance, whatever it might be." Damn it, he knows that I'm dealing with so much. Under his looming gaze, I sighed. "I do need some help because of my mortgage." "Then let me help. You agreed to this, and I'll pay the mortgage." "No, I can't possibly date you." "Why?" You sang a different tune when I went down on you, and you're obsessive. I've seen the way you look at me. Even before we hooked up, I saw the way he treated me, the little touches, smoldering gazes, and how he always picked me out from the crowd. The writing was all there, and I didn't know how to feel. Maybe, but I bring something tempting to the table, don't you think? Yes, but I need an answer by tomorrow. After Ivan pulled his hand away, he sat at his desk. I stood there until I stormed out of the office. No, there was no way in hell I was doing this. My unapproachable stalker boss, who was weird as hell about me, was asking for so much. I stormed out of the office before he got a chance to say anything else. I'd agreed to date him the second hell froze over. Later that night. Corey, I need your help. I gripped the phone tighter. Leanne was my only family after our parents passed in a car accident. I took care of her. Are you okay? I don't know. I've been throwing up all day and everything hurts, and Leanne's pain scream cut through the phone. I froze. Leanne struggled with relapsing polychondritis, which involved inflammation of the cartilage. I helped as much as I could, and recently it went into remission. I'm heading to the house to come get you right now. I hung up, hollowed and unsure. If Leanne's condition was back, then she would need all the help she could get. Even with insurance, the bills were excessive. I rushed over, taking Leanne to the hospital. Luckily, we got her to a professional before there was a significant cartilage breakdown. They gave her painkillers, and soon she was sound asleep. Everything was great until the doctor told me it wasn't covered by insurance. You're kidding me. I'm sorry, but they told me that it wouldn't be covered. No, why did this have to happen? Balling my hands into fists, I walked out of the hospital room, angry with myself. How could I save her? I didn't have the money. They'd take care of her till the disease subsides, but then what? I had no options, no other choice. I stayed with Leanne throughout the night, but there was one thing I needed to do tomorrow, which involved seeing Ivan. The next day, I went to Ivan's office again. I opened the door before he could say anything and stepped in. Corey, what are you? I'll do it, I muttered. I'll date you and come to these events, but there's something I need. Of course, what is it? I closed my eyes and explained my sister's condition. Ivan listened and nodded. I see. I'll do whatever I can. Thank you. This is a lot, but I appreciate your help. Anytime. Thank you for helping me. We agreed to do this fake dating thing. Even though it felt weird, my sister needed all the help she could get, and I promised I'd help her, even if it meant fake dating my weird boss. 3 days later. We went to the event. As we mingled with others, a few asked questions. Ivan held my hand, and it felt strange. Why? I didn't know. It was almost like something was wrong or forced, maybe. But also, I liked the closeness. After we left the area, Ivan sighed. You've done well so far, Corey. Thanks. And I must say that you look divine, he murmured, leaning in. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, inciting weird feelings in me. This must be a dream come true for you since you're always all over me. That, and I'm glad I can help. I've always admired you from the moment you worked at the company. I see. I turned and looked Ivan dead in the eyes. Did you know it was me when we started talking on that app? He shook his head. How can you even ask that? Of course I knew. Why else would I be so invested? God, you're so obsessive. But it was a nice surprise for you, though, don't you think? He replied with a wink. Stop being so embarrassing, I muttered. Ivan was strange. However, as we continued talking throughout the night, I learned so much. One, the guy loved animals and hiking. I found a sort of similarity I never expected from my boss. At the end of the night, when he dropped me back at my place, I turned to him and half smiled. You're not so bad, Ivan. Maybe I can continue this after all. He chuckled, leaning in to give me a kiss on the lips. Next week I have another event. This one's for board members. I'd like for you to come along. I agreed to it, not just because the money would help, but also because maybe Ivan wasn't so bad after all. I felt like I had my boss all wrong, and I grew curious about what might happen next. A week later. We went to another event, this time with the board members. As they talked, one of them looked at me with disdain. This is your +1 tonight, Ivan? He seemed like he doesn't belong here, an overly pompous redhead muttered. He's my date, Aaron, and I suggest you pipe down. He looked at me and sneered. I suppose he doesn't know then. Doesn't know? What's he talking about? I looked at Ivan and shrugged. He'll find out when he needs to. Well, I suggest you watch your back because your little boyfriend has his own secrets, he said, addressing me. Then he turned to Ivan, and I'm sure Becca would love to hear about that. Aaron walked away. The awkward tension grew, and then I looked at Ivan. Ivan, what did he... Don't worry about it, Corey. Right now, we're here to talk to people. Aaron's just trying to stir up trouble. Ivan grabbed my hand, and we mingled with others, but those words hung over me, and my curiosity grew. We'd gotten closer, and I liked what we had, but what was Ivan not telling me? 2 weeks later, we continued this fake dating, and eventually I found that Ivan was more interesting than I thought. He told me a little bit about himself and let me in. However, I still thought about what Aaron said and the mention of a gal named Rebecca. That night, after we went to another event, we ended up at Ivan's penthouse. Over drinks, our lips grew looser, and as I cuddled up against Ivan, he sighed. I like what we have, Corey, he admitted. Me too. It's nice. He turned and cut my chin. No, really. You're a good guy and we get along well. The longer I'm around you, the easier it is. And it makes me wonder just what this means for us. I paused. Did he want something more? Like a relationship? Maybe. I don't want to push it, but I wouldn't mind it, I replied with a smile. But you're still hard to read. Something's keeping me from... And I'm thinking about what Aaron said. Oh, that. Ivan's expression darkened. I moved back and raised my hands. I'm sorry if I ever overstepped my boundaries. You didn't. There are just secrets that I'm not sure I'm ready to spill. What did you do? I heard others. Aaron, he knows me from those days. Becca is his girlfriend and we go back. I never knew you dated a woman. Not my proudest moment. It bothered me too. Because of it, a lot of things happened. Bad things. I'm sorry, Ivan. He reached for my hands and held me tightly. I want you to be a part of my life, and also help you as much as I can. We've got this connection, something I've never felt with any other man I've dated. I smiled. I feel it too. You're not so bad after all. Ivan chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. We kissed on the couch and hooked up again that night. As we lay in bed, Ivan and I agreed to keep this relationship going, acknowledging that our feelings for each other were far deeper than either of us imagined. So why did I feel like there was something more going on? What was Ivan hiding? There are more questions, but not enough answers. However, I plan to wait. When Ivan is ready, I'll listen with an open mind and heart. A month later, our relationship grew even stronger. Ivan, despite his almost obsessive tendencies towards me, cared a lot. We agreed to keep dating and would hook up whenever we got the chance. I navigated sleeping with my boss while also working at my desk as his advisor. All the while, I also made sure that Leanne got her treatments. It was great, and I felt whole. Corey, I appreciate you helping with this mess. I wanted to ask marketing, but they were busy. It's fine. Yes, and I know if there are any problems, you'll get rid of it. For sure. Ivan leaned in and gave me a kiss. You know, you've given me so much to think about. I'm glad we can share this. I paused, flushing slightly. I'm glad we can too. You're sweet. Even if I do think the flowers are excessive, I enjoy it. He chuckled, pecking my cheek. I can give you so much more. If you want, I offered. We shared a kiss again, and later that night I finished my work and then we went to Ivan's house. We were happy. Or so I thought. A week later. Everything changed that morning. When I got to the office, I saw the articles. It was a hate piece about Ivan and me. The words uttered about me didn't bother me. What got my attention was what they said about Ivan, and the secrets revealed. The mafia. He's a part of the local mafia, which is tied to some of the biggest criminal organizations. He wanted out, but never completely left that world. I couldn't believe what I was reading. The entire piece felt like slander. I rushed to Ivan's office, but I saw him at his desk reading the articles, anger etched across his face. Ivan, what is this? I finally asked, showing him the article. He glowered. I'm sorry. Corey. I never wanted these secrets to get out. Ivan, please, tell me what this means. If you're a part of the mafia or whatever, I'll still support you, I said through tears. This is just a secret. One I wasn't ready to tell you about. Now it's there, and... He walked up to me, touching my shoulder. The pressure was hard as he gazed at me. I saw the anger and frustration raging across his face. It's best if you forget about me. I literally work for you. No, you don't. After today, I'm going. There will be someone else in my stead. Ivan walked past me. He closed the door and I stood there shaking. How did we get to this point? What do I do now? I had no clue. What I didn't know was that interaction would be the last I'd have with Ivan. By that afternoon, he was gone. A month later. Ivan cut everything off. He disappeared without so much as a response to me. It hurt. Far more than anything else I could ever imagine. I paid for Leanne's surgeries and treatment, but the money was running out. The mortgage was paid through the end of the month, but then what? What the hell do I do then? Anxiety pulsated within me. I didn't know. My phone buzzed. A text from Leanne. Thanks for the money. They said they were going to release me in 3 days. Good. I was happy that Leanne would live, even if it meant I'd possibly lose everything else. The new guy that ran the business had few words, and I stuck to my corner. However, all I thought about was Ivan. I texted my sister to let her know I'd be there later. I wanted to see her and, if nothing else, feel better about how far I've come. Later that day. Leanne looked better. She was in less pain and smiling. It made me happy, especially after feeling so down for the last month. We talked, but then Leanne looked at me with curiosity. How did you pay for this? The doctor said you covered my treatment. Oh, I had some help. From who? I hesitated. My sister knew I was gay, but would she judge me if she learned I'd be sleeping with my boss? I took a deep breath and braced myself, confiding with the truth to my sister. She listened intently. Wow, I can't believe you did that for me. I love you, sis. And well, when I was with Ivan, things went great. We got along well, and I bit my lip. Leanne rested her hand on top of mine. And what? And I love him. He's gone, though. I miss him, sis. He was the best thing that happened to me. It was my turn to shed some tears. Leanne consoled me as I let out the feelings that I'd been bottling up for the last month. After I settled down, she sighed. You're a good man, Corey. I'm so grateful for what you did. Anytime, sis. I'm sure he'll be back. I'll help you find him. You know what they say, love always finds a way. I nodded. It does. But would it come back to me? I wasn't sure myself. We talked for a bit, and as I left, I felt better, but still hollowed. At least now I have what I wanted to say off my chest. Maybe now I can finally move on. 2 days later. Leanne will be discharged tomorrow. I was excited to take her home. Apparently, it was in almost full remission. Now it was time to recover. After I finished work, I headed to the car. When I got there, a shadowy figure The figure dashed, ended up right behind me, resting the knife against my back. I heard the voice. Ivan should have broken up with you when he had the chance. What are you? The knife shoved against my back. Gasping, I saw red. My vision went black, and I slowly lost consciousness. There we go. This is payback for Aaron and I. Not so fast, Becca. Becca? I looked over and saw the same shadowy figure standing in the alleyway. Another one appeared behind the gal, who I guessed was Aaron. Oh, so you're still around. We made sure to let out your little secret, Aaron said. Becca and I want payback for you breaking things off. Breaking things off? I tried to ask, but even just breathing became a taxing process. Sounds of fighting filled the air. I barely registered what was going on because of the pain radiating through my body. The last thing I heard was Ivan's feral scream and words that resonated through my ear. You'll pay for what you've done to him. Hours later. I didn't know what happened, but when I came to, I was in the hospital. Wincing, I glanced at my side, seeing some bandages and gauze. The doctors say you'll need to stay still. It's healing, but slowly. You're lucky she didn't hit a vital organ. Ivan? I asked as I finally registered his voice. He sat there looking at me with a pained expression. How did I get here? That's a long story. Tell me. I've got nowhere else to be. Ivan grabbed my hand and he divulged the truth. Ivan was indeed part of the mafia, and Becca, that girl that attacked, was the daughter of the Don. When he distanced himself, he broke off their marriage agreement, and she vowed to get vengeance. The Don accepted the terms, finding a better suitor for Becca. However, Becca was madly in love with Ivan, which made things complicated. As for Aaron, he was an old disgruntled employee that Ivan used to eat. One thing led to another, and Ivan fired him. I sat there and listened to the story. Wow, I'm surprised. It was part of my past, something I wish I could forget. I never could. Now, you know. I'm sorry for hiding all this from you and being such a coward. I wanted to wait for the right time to tell you all of this, but unfortunately, I never got the right moment to just sit down and tell you. I squeezed his hand and smiled. I forgive you, Ivan. It sounds like a lot. It was. Again, I'm really sorry, Corey. I understand if you don't fully forgive me. I wasn't the best person towards you. I shook my head. Ivan, you're not a bad person. In fact, I feel better learning about who you really are. You care a lot, and wanted to focus on the here and now rather than on the past. Yes, but I left, abandoning you. You nearly died, but you saved me. You're here. Leanne told me that love finds a way. In our case, it sure did. Ivan sat there, surprised at my words. Love? Yes, Ivan, I love you. I've fallen for you. You had your reasons for leaving, but you're here now. He nodded. I did. I feared your image would be tarnished, and I needed to figure out who spilt it. It was only recently when I learned it was Becca and Aaron. That makes sense. You're here now, and I'm glad you're back. Me too. I feel the same way. I've fallen for you, and I'm excited for wherever the future takes us. Me too. You want me to stay, though, right? His eyes lit up. Sure do. I'm not pushing your way anymore, Corey, and I'm excited for what's to come. We shared a soft kiss in the hospital room. Ivan stayed with me throughout the night, and the next day he also helped me get my sister. He stepped up, and when Leanne came in, I introduced her. She grinned. I like him. He makes you happy, so you have my support. Thanks, Lee. I'm happy too. Ivan stayed with me until I was discharged. He dedicated his time and energy to me. That night, he kissed and hugged me, and as I lay in Ivan's arms, I knew this was where I needed to be. In his arms, I was happy and protected. Although he started out as my stalker, he became everything I could ever need. Conclusion. Ivan went public with a press conference about his past. People were confused, but they accepted it. He also introduced me as his boyfriend to the public. Ivan left the mafia. He made a deal with a Don that I never heard about, but rumor has it that the Don let him go as an apology for his daughter's actions. Becca and Aaron were arrested and ended up in legal trouble. I never knew what happened after that. Ivan and I dated, and 2 years later, during an event, he pulled me to the top of the building. As we looked down at the people from the top of the roof, he asked me to marry him. Of course I said yes. My boss might have been weird and obsessive, but he was also the most incredible man I'd ever met. A fighter. Not just for himself, but for our love. Until the very end. The end. Have you ever ended up on a blind date with someone you didn't expect? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.